If you thought Japan was all about anime culture and pizza crust with tapioca in it, you're wrong. Japan is also the king of fun cars that go fast, and usually for like next to no money. And of course, since they're so cheap, you can build those cars into the car of your dreams. That's why in today's video, I'm gonna run you through the best cars for less than 10,000 bucks coming out of Japan that you can start your tuning adventure with. So if you're new here, I'm the Squid. This is Ideal Cars. We talk about cool cars, very often Japanese ones, so go ahead and give us a subscribe down below, and without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey guys, real quick, I gotta thank today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. You see, Raid has taken over, and it's the first game to bring a true console level experience to your device. They've set the bar so high and there's no going back. So join me and explore millions of champion combinations and master countless tactics as you take on raid bosses, dungeon runs, campaign battles, and PvP arena matches. With hundreds of artifacts to equip and over 500 champions with unique skills, you can build your team, develop your champions, and raid your way. So what are you waiting for? Click the link down in the description and download Raid yourself for your PC or your mobile device. You see, I've been playing Raid for a while now, and a couple of my favorite champions are Elder Skarg, who is a universal fighter kinda like me, and Norog, because this big spiky boy is often overlooked. And what I love about the game is jumping into a couple of PvP arena battles, because personally, I'm super competitive and I really just can't get enough. Plus, this month, Raid's got a non-stop schedule of summer events and activities. We're talking special fusion events to get a brand new legendary champion, tournaments against other players like myself, and much more. They're also releasing 5 amazing new champions, and each of them look incredible. So, if you want to get a huge head start in Raid, all you gotta do is hit the link in the description or scan the QR code right here. New players will get an epic hero, Chinoru, who is amazing in the Doom Tower, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and the 1 ancient shard so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in game. Plus, you'll find your extra rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. And it really is that easy. Just click the link in the description and I'll see you in the game. And now, back to the show.
Up first, we have a car that I would definitely call the comment queen. You guys like talking about this thing a whole lot down below. You're constantly saying, what about the RX-7? Well, fine, we hear you. Here it is. Sure, every single generation of the rotary-powered RX-7 is fantastic. But for our price range, under 10K, we're gonna be talking about the second generation, otherwise known as the FC3S RX-7 or FC. And what's not to love? It's got that punchy little 1.3 liter rotary engine putting out a respectable 146 horsepower, which is not a lot, yeah. You could get the turbo, which has about 182 horsepower, but that's gonna be well outside the price range we're talking about here. Either way, that power is enough to push that plucky little RX-7 up to a 0 to 60 time of 6.4 seconds, which, yeah, your mom's minivan is probably faster than that. But this was the 80s. Acceleration and 0 to 60 times were not what everything was about back then. And the RX-7 is not a drag racer. It's a complete package. You see, the FC RX-7 was designed as a canyon carving beast. One huge advantage of the rotary is that that tiny little 1.3 liter engine is extremely lightweight. The car also featured electronically assisted steering and an absolutely groundbreaking rear suspension design, which included something called DTSS, which is way too technical for me to get into in this video. But basically what it means is the FC RX-7 is great at handling at any speed. And the FC RX-7 has clout too. It was as successful at racing as it was at sales. And even today, the FC RX-7 holds a very special place in a lot of enthusiasts' hearts. Mostly though, you know, the enthusiasts that can't afford the later FD generation RX-7. But still, the FC is really cool. And of course, the reason we're including it on this list is because the base model FC is an extremely tunable car. From a drift car to a drag racer to even some rally cars. The FC RX-7 can be turned into pretty much anything you want it to. There are nearly endless possibilities and parts out there to turn your RX-7 into anything you want. You want more power? Add another rotor to that engine. You want to stance it out and put it on sick wheels? Go ahead, the thing looks great slammed. And if you want to compete at the highest levels, well, guess what? These things have been seen dominating the track of Pikes Peak Hill Climb. Now, the good news is used examples of the FC are pretty plentiful. The bad news is finding a clean stock one at this point on a car that's like 30 plus years old is nearly impossible. Still, for under 10,000 bucks, if you don't mind a little wind in your hair, you can pick up a convertible like this one we found for around 8,000 bucks. Now, of course, it's not the turbo model. For those, you're gonna spend well over 15,000 bucks, and for a clean one, I don't know, double that. You want to save yourself a ton of money? You can buy the Turbo 2 engine for around 5 grand and put it in the naturally aspirated FC, and you kind of got the poor man's Turbo 2 for a lot less money. Now, if you don't want to go through the hassle of engine swapping an RX-7 and dealing with the rotors and apex seals and stuff, I totally understand. If you want to keep it simple, stupid, get yourself an oft-forgotten but super overlooked Acura RSX. Now, I know what you're saying. Unlike the RX-7, the RSX is fail-wheel drive. But I think if you were to give this car a chance, and even a test drive around the block, you might reconsider your opinions on wrong-wheel drive. Because the Acura RSX is an absolute hoot to drive. In fact, the Integra, which is what the RSX goes by in every other part of the world, is considered one of the greatest front-wheel drive cars ever made. The chassis is well-balanced and designed for sporty, spirited driving. And the K-Series motor that powers it is one of the greatest four-cylinder engines ever made. Don't believe me? Watch this video about a bunch of other four-cylinder legends that we talked about before. And what makes the K-Series so special? Well, it's one of the most modifiable engines ever, which is pretty good because stock, this only came with about 155 horsepower. If you get the Type S, you get a little bit of bumping power, but it's still not a lot. But that doesn't matter. Like all the other cars in this list, you're gonna modify the hell out of this and build this to insane power, and the K-Series engine will stand up to it. And because underneath it all, this is a Honda, you know that the whole car is going to be insanely reliable, which is not what I can say about that RX-7 we just talked about. And one of the best parts about this car is that today, with a little bit of miles on it, but remember, this is a Honda, you can pick up an Acura RSX for around 5 grand. Now, if you want to step it up to the Type S edition, you're gonna spend around $2,000 or $3,000 more, which, you know, is kind of worth it. And you still have room left over afterwards to spend money on modifications. Get some individual throttle bodies, some coilovers, and a short throw shifter. Do that and you'll have an old Acura that keeps up with a lot of the more modern, fun sports cars of today. On the cheap. All right. I know, you can't get over that it's front wheel drive. You're gonna need a palate cleanser that does drifts and does sweet burnouts. Well, good news, next up we're talking about the classic, the best deal in sports cars ever, the Nissan 350Z. Is that a kazoo? Is that a trumpet? Nope, what you're hearing is the naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 VQ engine that comes in all Nissan 350Zs, which turns out 300 horsepower stock. Yeah, that's nearly twice the amount of the other cars on this list. And like a true sports car, it sends all that power through its rear differential. The Nissan 350Z's balanced chassis made it an obvious choice for autocrossers and track day racers. But of course, since you're watching Ideal and you're probably all teenagers, you probably all know the 350Z as a drift car. You know, like DK from Tokyo Drift. And yes, with some movie magic, the 350Z is a fantastic drift car. But it was also a dominant force in the Formula Drift series. I know I can't forget Chris Forsberg's awesome convertible orange NOS energy drink 350Z. Now, even if you're not a drifter and you don't plan on going to any autocrosses or even any track days, the 350Z is still just an incredible sports car to drive every single day. It does pretty much everything right. And a stock 350Z is essentially a blank canvas for which you can modify to turn into anything you want. And it's so old and it was so prolific that there's basically a part by 10 different companies for every single piece of this car. So go out there, grab yourself a Z with under 100,000 miles with a 6-speed for only 6,000 bucks and spend that $4,000 on mods. Get yourself some coilovers and some wheels and a bunch of crappy shit off of wish.com. And while you're at it, get 5 horsepower by buying yourself an Ideal sticker up here. Now, if you need to haul around some family or some friends, the 2 seats in the 350Z are just not gonna cut it. But you still want a fun car, right? A practical fun car. Well, there's nothing more fun and practical than the Mazdaspeed 3. I know, it looks unassuming, but trust me, the Mazdaspeed 3 really packs a punch. With 263 horsepower and even more torque, this unassuming little car knows how to get up and go like hell. And yeah, sure, the Mazdaspeed 3 is a great drag racer. It kills in a straight line. But with Mazda's signature drivability, it can hold its own in the corners too. And the 3 in Mazdaspeed 3 stands for the 3 pedals that it comes with. That's right, the Mazdaspeed 3 only came in a manual. And it's not just kids and tuners and drag racers that think the Mazdaspeed 3 is incredible. Car and Driver agreed when it came out. They ranked the Mazdaspeed 3 as one of their best 10 cars of 2007, 8, and 10. Right out of the box, this car is a hoot, and it is a fantastic car. But good news, it's on this list, so it's moddable as hell. With a simple tune, an intake, a downpipe, and a high pressure fuel pump, and you'll be knocking down 300 horsepower like that. Add in a couple of supporting mods and you're gonna get another 100 horsepower out of it. And it doesn't stop there. You can go full send and build these up to 4-digit horsepower numbers. Just, you know, don't forget about torque steer. The secret about the Mazdaspeed 3 is out though, and buyers like you are driving prices up right now. Just a few years ago, we were finding these for under 5,000 bucks, but not anymore. Now they're coming in at just under our budget of $10,000, which means you could buy a clean example and just sit on it for a couple years and sell it and make some money. But that's the kind of buying smartness that only people that have learned the ideal car strategies know about. Now, speaking of appreciation and cars that will make you money over the next couple of years, we're gonna be talking about a 90s legend that is one of the most appreciating cars in the world right now. The Acura Integra. We mentioned its successor earlier on with the RSX, but these older Integras have a few key differences that make them really special. Primarily, it's that legendary B18 engine that sits under the hood, putting out 142 horsepower, which, you know, again, not impressive by today's standards, but back in the 90s, anything over 100 horsepower, the 4-cylinder, was pretty good. And power means nothing if you're broken down all the time, and this is a Honda, so it's reliable as hell no matter how much power it's putting out. But as much as the Integra is beloved today for its engine, back when it came out, the engine was actually second place to its handling characteristics, earning it the respected title of finest front-wheel drive car of its own generation. You see, Honda's engineers outfitted the Integra with an improved control arm suspension system and front anti-roll bar that helped make the third generation Integra a racer for the road. Pair it with the endlessly tunable B18 engine and you have an outstanding 90s Japanese legend that will earn you a lot of respect on the street by driving one. Well, at least from, you know, old JDM dudes like me. Now today, it is very hard to find a really clean, really good Integra that isn't worth a bazillion bucks. But with a little digging, we were able to find this one for around 9,000 bucks that looks like a great example and is a car that likely will go up in value by the thousands over the next few years. So you can buy it, drive it, sell it, and have paid essentially nothing to own it. Now, another absolutely iconic Japanese sports car, which you're probably all just waiting for me to mention, is the Subaru WRX. Unlike every other car on this list, the Subaru WRX comes standard with all-wheel drive because it's a rally racing car built for the streets.
Look at this dude.
And that all-wheel drive makes the WRX so much fun in the sun, sand, or the snow. So what's not to love? The WRX's trick differentials help manage the power output from the engine to the wheels, making it nearly impossible to get stuck in a bad situation with the WRX.
Are you sure about that?
I did say almost. Now, of course, these being more complicated, they're not exactly the easiest to work on. But the WRX has some of the widest aftermarket support in the game. Intakes, downpipes, intercoolers, paired with an access port, turn WRXs into rocket ships. Everyone loves a Subaru WRX because they're so easy to make your own. And chances are, if you go to a car meet, there's gonna be another WRX there. There's probably like a dozen of them there. So you're gonna have friends. All of them different, all of them unique in their own style, all of them WRXs. And probably all of them will have smoke coming out of them from either their vapes or their tailpipes. Because yes, the WRX is not the most reliable car on this list. I wanna keep an eye on those head gaskets. The WRX always gets my blood flowing whenever I hear that signature boxer engine. And today, you can pick up one of the best generations of WRX for under 10 grand. If it were me, I'd be looking for this third generation WRX with under 100,000 miles on the clock for less than 9,000 bucks. Now, you still want a boxer motor, but you don't want all the complicated gizmos and gadgets and differentials of an all-wheel drive car? Well then you've got to check out the Toyaru FRZ86. We're talking about the trio of cars made by Toyota, Subaru, and Scion that are all essentially the same cars with different badges and interior bits. We're talking about the Toyota 86, the Scion FRS, and the Subaru BRZ. They look a little different car to car, but they're all the same underneath. They're all packing a naturally aspirated 2-liter, 4-cylinder boxer engine, putting out around 200 horsepower. So yes, they're not the most fast cars in the world. And in fact, they're one of the most overrated cars I can imagine. Check out that video up here. But still, despite my opinions, they are a ton of fun. And the aftermarket community definitely agrees with me, because you pretty much cannot find a stock one anymore. They're all wide-bodied, they're all stanced out, they're all on air, they're all turbo. From backyard brawlers to Formula Drift cars for the street, this chassis is ready for pretty much anything. And thanks to its lightweight and rear-wheel drive, this is one of the best, cheapest, fun cars to drive of the modern era. New, each of these cars was worth around $20,000 plus, which is fantastic. That's a great price point for enthusiasts. Meaning when these came out, they were pretty much every tuner's dream car. But today, they're every cheap bastard's dream car. Meaning you can get a manual transmission Subaru WRX-786 for under 10,000 bucks. Now, of course, we can't talk about lightweight rear-wheel drive cars coming out of Japan without mentioning the Mazda Miata. I'm sure you saw that coming. But why? Because of course, Miata is always the answer. Why is it always the answer though? Why do we love this tiny little Barbie car 2-seat roadster? Because it is still, to this day, the best combination of lightweight, rear-wheel drive, fun, and cheap. And it really doesn't matter which generation you choose, because each one stays true to that formula. And another amazing part about a Mazda Miata is they're just ridiculously simple and reliable, meaning they're a great first car for a burgeoning enthusiast. They're not fast enough to kill you, they're reliable enough you won't break down, and they're easy enough to work on that you can really get to tinker with all the bits and bobs of a Miata over the couple of years you'll be working on it. What makes the Miata so fun though is that it's lightweight and it has a 50-50 weight distribution, meaning it's the perfect track toy for a small budget. Now of course, the Miata has its own downsides too, most of them being that it has like no horsepower. This is the most puny car on the list and only comes in at around 116 horsepower from the factory. It has a 0 to 60 time of nearly 10 seconds. But luckily, the Miata is so prolific, it is so popular, and it was so modified to this point that there are parts for this everywhere. Meaning you could turbocharge it for around 2,000 bucks. Sure, it won't be fast, but at least you'll shave a few seconds off that extremely long 0 to 60 time. And definitely upping the fun factor in the Miata to the moon. And not surprisingly, the older generations of Miatas are now appreciating. These used to be like 3,000 bucks on the secondhand market, and today you'll be shelling out between 6,000 and 10,000 bucks for a good example. Meaning that yes, this is another car you could buy, drive, own for a couple years, and maybe even sell for more money, which is always an ideal car. So that's our list. What do you think? Is Miata always the answer? It probably is. Let us know down below. And while you're down there, subscribe to Ideal Cars, turn on the little bell so you know when we upload stuff, because we're gonna keep serving you content like this pretty much every other day, so that you, me, your mom, everyone in Japan, everyone in America can keep living the ideal lifestyle.